exactly what Occupy Wall Street is all about.
Yeah.
Well, you know that Occupy, I don't know if you've looked at the latest WikiLeaks, the information that they're starting to publish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought when I was watching that Occupy Wall Street and all those other Occupy movements everywhere that it was a setup. I thought it because I know a protest, a genuine protest when I see one because I've been in them.
Mm-hmm.
I watched them very closely and I studied them. And so here they're saying it's a leaderless Occupy movement, but it turns out there was a nerve center staffed by professional people, and it was paid for by billionaire activist George Soros. I don't know if you know who that is.
Oh yeah.
Okay, don't make any mistake. There are certainly disruptive elements that are injected into these occupations deliberately to upset the apple cart, and then the police can move in and pepper spray. But
I guess what the native saying
the
is
the main thrust of this thing is totally valid, and it's leaderless, and they don't have specific issues, but they are so powerful that it's going to have a lasting effect. I believe that.
I believe it's
well. I really, I have to, what I've seen from some of the stuff I've read from WikiLeaks is that there are people within them, because I'll tell you what happened. There was a girl that came to Six Nations a week ago. I was there at a meeting, and she drove somebody there, a Native person. So I questioned that person, and the way she answered the questions, the way the information that she gave, it was very obvious to me that she was an asset. She's an infiltrator. But where do you think she came from? She came from that Occupy Toronto movement. So I questioned her about it. I said, were you actually there staying in the Toronto Occupy movement? Well, no, but I knew people there. So as I questioned her, I found out more and more that she was basically sent in there to go and have lunch with the ones that were, that were really sympathetic and were genuine, but she was not. But there she is. She's traveling around our people. And here it turns out the Occupy Wall Street movement has offices.
But every movement, every protest has several nucleus. Everyone wants to prove their point. So this ain't something new. This is something that has just been modernized to become something larger. I do believe that that's possible, and I take you for your word. It's probably true. But like Bill was saying, you have the people out there. Yeah. The plan is to take control. Look at the G20 and the G8 that they had in Canada. The billions and billions of dollars that went into those two things. That money was not used for that. That money was geared away, and that money was used to buy more weaponized things to use against the people, the population, when they finally rise up. So it's all projected lie.
What I saw in that, I saw that film. What I saw was that the billions were spent in order to find out if they could get the police to attack their own people. That was what it was about, because it was mostly white people. And now, and this Occupy movement statistics in New York City is being kept by New York City government. And of the protesters, they had a sampling of 984 protesters. Many of them are coming from very wealthy families, opulent.
There'll never be any movement or any uprising without.
The vast majority are white, 27 years old.
Well, that's a good sign, actually. I was just down there at Zuccotti Park in Manhattan, and I was. You're right, Gantanede. It's largely a middle class or even upper middle class white movement. And when I started talking about genocide and child abuse and all that, they looked at me like I was crazy, like they didn't even know what I was talking about. But those are exactly the kind of mainstream people you've got to reach with this stuff, because like, it's true, I'm sure, what you're all saying, that it could have been initiated by somebody else, but the people it draws in are those who have a real desire to want to have a new arrangement altogether. They want a new society. They're looking for what that is. And when we start telling them the truth of how this continent was built, what it was built on, and how it's still maintained in this genocide, that's the kind of group you want to get that information to, because they're the ones who have more, the TV cameras are on them when they start speaking. You know what it's like as a Native person. Nobody will ever listen to you, right? I mean, if we can get them as allies, we're down the road a little bit. That's my take on it, at least.
You're absolutely right, Kevin. And I've been saying for years that it's all very well to sing to the choir and speak to the choir, but if we're ever going to get anywhere, it's the mainstream we've got to reach.
Well, the mainstream is not the 1%. And these people that the group that they looked at, they were not the 1%. They were entitled upper class people. What are they? They're at this thing, and then at a certain point, the police were called in, and then everything stopped. So the whole thing. I know a setup.
Continental, there are thousands and thousands.
I'm going to tell you.
Thousands and thousands of demonstrations worldwide. This is not one narrow little.
Yeah, that's true. It's all over.
Demonstration.
Right.
I'll tell you something. I was watching those demonstrations in Egypt, and I saw people, men, screaming into the camera, saying, "I'm here because I have children, and we're hungry." Mm-hmm. And I looked at them, and they were sincere. I looked at the ones in New York and Toronto, and in New York they were they had terrific, expensive gadgets on them. They had their eyebrows fixed, plucked. They were well groomed. No, they were two different people altogether. I mean,
that is true. They're quite different. But
a setup is a setup, and I know one when I see one.
But let's look at history. When the poor protest and take on the system, what happens? They're slaughtered.
Nothing. Right.
When the middle class and the movers and shakers take it on, it changes. That's the unfortunate reality. That's what history
shows. You know that ones that got arrested, they were all arrested, but for non-violent acts. They were all arrested and they were let go. So obviously, the people, this was I still say, from looking at it myself, my own opinion, that it was it was organized, well organized. They had a lot of donations. They had a lot of money. It was well managed, and there was people that were directing it, and they even had housing for those people. Many of them sleeping arrangements for the protesters.
That puts in question everyone's integrity who went to the streets to make a change, and you can't do that. That's generalizing. Not every person that went to the street.
I'm telling you what I saw.
Hold on. Let me get my point out first. That's generalizing. The ones who are going to make the change is the middle class. Who's losing the most? The middle class. Who needs to be out there speaking? The middle class. And in speaking, we need to educate them the truth so that it becomes the weapon. See, they have a nucleus, and we know about it. Then we should have one too.
Well, we could.
You're right, because the director for this one is I think it's called the Ruckus Society.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
It's very well funded, and they got a lot of money.
Yeah.
So,
Cananita, I want to ask you.
Close it down. They closed it down like that. It was all coordinated everywhere in the United States.
Can I suggest that we change gears here? It's an interesting discussion.
Yeah.